Emily, new tonight, a family is struggling to understand what happened after a missing woman was found dead.
The man accused in the case, her boyfriend. Our Brett Weber sat down with the family tonight in a story you will only see on 6 News.
Two memorials beneath the old Mormon Bridge Road overpass stand near the spot where Eileen Gowan's body was found in frigid winter conditions February 26th. But her family wants to remember her in other ways.
She raised 4 of us kids. She had 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, just to make sure we had everything we needed.
Her spontaneous laughter.
We were just both laughing to the point we were crying.
Her homemade roasted noodles and minute steaks.
Minute steaks, and she would make mashed potatoes homemade with gravy.
That she loved to get her vitamin D in the sun and was a breast cancer survivor.
She survived the breast cancer, and this monster took her out.
Facing charges related to her disappearance, the man police describe as her on and off boyfriend, Sam Brammer. A 2-page affidavit details how police used city cameras, cell phone records, and more to track the two in his truck together before her disappearance. At one point, Eileen appeared unconscious in his passenger seat. A day after his last interview with Council Bluffs police, he took his truck to be crushed and recycled. All these led to charges including abuse of a corpse, but not related to homicide.
I feel relief that he's locked up and that he's not free, but I don't feel like justice has been served yet.
Eileen's other 2 children, Clint and Catherine, live out of state with their families, but all for now are wondering if the investigation will bring more charges and if that will be enough to provide peace in memory of their mother.
I care less about the jail time, all that. I just want to know how my mom was, what happened to my mom. I don't care about jail, all that. Our pastor preaches all the time on forgiveness. At some point, I'm going to have to forgive this man. I don't know how.
On your side in Council Bluffs, Brett Weber, 6 News.
A link to details on the affidavit can be found in Brent's story on our website at WOWT.com.
10 Nebraska